What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have been so inundated with you guys' likes and subs over the past time. It's been amazing. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to keep this intro going on for too long, but I just want to thank you guys because we just hit over 280 subscribers. Just a week ago, we were at 230 or something. Thank you guys so much. We're on the road to 300. I really appreciate it. And let's get into the video. Today what we're going to be doing is just an explainer video mostly. I've had a lot of people reach out to me asking, okay, can you go into the actual items in a build and say like, hey, why is this good versus that being bad? What are you really looking for when you're making a build? And first things, what I will say first of all is that if you are in the early game, literally focus on damage and health, the amount of health it gives you out there at the very top, and then also for your weapon, just how much average DPS, the average damage per second, it will give you. That's pretty much your main concern, because honestly all the early mobs and stuff, you don't have to worry too much. It should be pretty easy to take care of them. Now once you get into the end game and you have to start doing raids and stuff like that, then I understand you looking for a build, and that's when you should actually, this video mostly pertains to you. But if you're just starting out, this is good information nonetheless, so you can understand how the damage in this game actually works. And to do that, we're going to switch over to this. This is the Win Builder. You can literally just search Win Builder. It's a GitHub thing that was created to help better understand the damage in the game and to better understand how a build works in the game. Now, for my build, I have it loaded into here, and let me first do 106 or 606 there. Okay, and now we're going to take a look at this line by line of what these actually have. So if we're looking at my helmet, the reason that a helmet like this is good and is the percent water damage. Now there's a difference between percents of damage and raw damage. For example, one of you guys asked about specific raw damage versus percent damage and what is more important to focus on. I would say if you're in the early game, don't worry about percent damage because you're not doing that much damage, so increasing it by 10% doesn't change much, okay? But getting raw damage will add to it. For example, check this out. This bow that I have can do up to 144 raw spell damage and 144 raw melee damage. What that means is that the amount of damage I do, the amount of normal damage I do, so not elemental, the amount of normal damage I do here, it's used by this icon in game, is increased by exactly 144. Now that can change. For example, if I have something where it says that your average, look this, my spell damage percent increases by 12. Now it will take my raw spell damage, 144, and it will increase that number by 64%. So if you're going to ask what is important, whether you should have raw spell damage or spell damage percent, well, I would tell you, hey, do you have any spell damage to begin with? Do you have a good amount? 144 is decent, and with 64% added to that, I get an additional like 70. So it's great to have, especially since I also do elemental damage for my abilities as well. So keep in mind, whenever, especially in the early game, if you're looking to do damage, look more for raw damage or raw spell damage. That's kind of what you're looking for. Elemental is fine, but don't worry about it too much because most early game elemental damages doesn't really impact your experience too much. Now, if we go on to this whole mana regen, mana steal, mana stuff, I want to go ahead and say what mana regen and mana steal are some of the most helpful things in the game. Why? Because you will almost always be using all of your abilities as quickly as possible. Being able to do that quickly at the moment is kind of broken, because if my escape spell costs 2, my arrow storm costs 3 mana, and I have over 150 mana, which this thing is messed up, I don't exactly have that, but As you can see, I have a ton of mana. I can just use my abilities super quickly, and I won't run out of mana here. So you look for, if a weapon has a mana regen on it, and a lot of it, I would probably keep that one up until like the damage is just way too little. Okay, now one of the big problems is that people focus so much on the damage that they end up having terrible health or terrible defense. Keep in mind, for my whole build, my big leggings, the whole point of my leggings, they take away my damage for quite a few, but they increase my defense by a lot. Defense is increased by 20. My health bonus is increased by 1950, by 260, by 1 over 5 seconds. It's increased. So I would always have something that gives you defense. It is such a common trait in this game to have people who have a ton of damage. Their damage output is absolutely insane, but they can't survive 2 hits from a mob. Do not be that guy. You do not want to be the person who cannot survive 2 hits from a mob. You want them to go out there and stay like 6-7 hits. I would recommend 6-7 hits minimum. Because you don't want to just, if anything, more. Now granted, these guys are 30 levels lower than me, so they're not going to do much damage, but this is kind of what I'm saying. You want to be able to survive the impact of at least few shots, because most mobs, especially boss fights, will give you those shots. You will be shot a lot of times. And doing that is very important. I think at the moment, the builds that are kind of the best are the builds, again, that are built on mana and have all elemental damage. Now, what is elemental damage? Why is elemental damage even important? The reason elemental damage can be very useful, if we switch over to here, is that elemental damage doubles the damage if it's weak to that specific element. So, for example, if a mob is weak to fire damage, instead of doing 20% fire damage, I will actually do 40% fire damage to them. It will critically hurt them in a way. Same thing with water. 33, it will give me a ton more damage for that specific mob. Now this obviously comes at the expense of that for some mobs that have defense of everything, it will not do as much damage. But if we look at mine, all of my damages are above 100 over there at the top. Fire is 75 to 119, water is 83 to 151, and air damage is 55 to 139. Thunder is 45 to 149, earth damage is 107 to 135, and on average, I will do about 1,084 damage per second, shooting it normally like this. And the reason that I love building full elemental is because every mob, usually, except for some of the few final bosses, is weak to a certain element. If we go back outside over here and we look at these mobs, they might just be super low level mobs, so they might not even have any, like bandits don't really apply. But look at this right here. Perfect. It is weak to fire and it does air damage. But so I am fine because I have a ton of defense all the way, and because I do happen to do fire damage against it. Where is that mob? I cannot find it. It probably went invisible. But I do the damage that it is weak to, and usually they are weak to a certain damage. They are weak to a certain element, and then they are very strong in a different one. So having all the elements is very helpful, and I would kind of stay away from making a full like fire build, because then if you go against something that is defensive for fire, you're not going to have a great time. Okay, so whenever you're looking at something like raw main attack damage, right? This was one of the questions that was asked of me. What does main attack damage mean? What does that imply? And I will tell you, it's a lot like this right here, where it's raw melee damage on the bow, except that it's usually on armor pieces. And on the armor pieces, let's see if I can find one. Just main attack damage. I don't think any of this any of these armor pieces give you main attack damage. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the shop and I'm gonna find you guys a piece of armor that has this main attack damage. And main attack damage is a lot like the raw spell damage and the the percent of spell damage. So if we look at legendary chest plates, yeah, past level 90. Okay. Of course, there's a ton of Libras. Oh, here we go. On this Taurus, you have, if you look down there at the bottom, it's plus 63% main attack damage and plus 1800 main attack damage. What does that mean? Okay, well, that means that for every shot that you take out of your weapon, it will deal an additional 1800 normal non-elemental damage. It will add to normal non-elemental damage plus 800. Okay, and then all of your normal main attack damage will also be increased by 63% every time you fire it as well. So this seems kind of broken once you start seeing that the attack speed is minus 25 tiers, which means you shoot incredibly slow. Incredibly slow. So if you're going, this one is more like your main attack damage does a ton of damage, but you're very slow to do it, and it increases your strength and you're exploding, and it's kind of cool. But that's kind of what that does. Meanwhile, a build like this increases your overall damage, Libra, which is why it's kind of broken at the moment. The Libra is broken. This is my hot take. We should not have the Libra. The Libra is terrible. It is way too broken. It gives you plus 7 of everything, which not only increases your elemental damage for each one of those 7 things, but it increases, for example, your strength, increases your overall damage, your dexterity increases your crit, your intelligence increases your mana, your agility increases your ability to dodge attacks, and your defense increases your defense, your ability to withstand fights. And then you have 7/5 mana regen. It gives you mana. And it gives you all the elemental damage, and it has good health. The Libra is absolutely broken. If they're going to keep this in this game, they might as well boost everything else up on the stats, because the Libra is absolutely insane. Obviously, there's total HP, and then you have effective HP. There's a bit of a difference here. Your defenses, the more defense you have, you can see I have crazy water defense, a really good air defense, really good earth defense. That goes into my effective HP. When I get hit by something, I will not take as much damage simply because I have these protections on me. And so it's as if I had no defense anything, if there was no defense on my kit at all, effectively I would have 99,000 health. Is what I would have if I had all this defense. So don't skip out on the defense. You want your defense to be like 2 times your total HP, I would say, at minimum. If you're in the late game, you want it to be 35k. Really, 35k is a great place to be at. 99 here is a bit too much. It's too far. So I have a very defensive build. That's because I hate not being able to withstand big attacks from final bosses. And I output a pretty decent amount of damage. Okay, so that is elemental damage, and obviously elemental damage works, elemental defense works in a very similar way like the elemental damage does, where it will mitigate some of the damage you take from that type of mob. Like if it does fire damage, for example, and you have fire defense like I do, you will take less damage. So we've talked about mana regen, mana steal. We talked about health regen raw. This is simple saying that over a period of 3 seconds you will regen 260 health. Raw spell damage, we've talked about that. Melee damage, your melee is your main attack. That's the exact same thing. Walk speed bonus. And some people have very slow kits and they realize later that they can't complete parkour because of it. I can also increase my speed by 20% with my ability, and I'm a fast archer. I like speedy builds, but it's not always possible, so keep that in mind. Okay, and then we have obviously our elemental damage. So when it comes to overall build stats, focus on having a good HP and at least twice the effective HP, at least 35k would be a good effective HP to be at. Try to have positives for most of these. You can't always have them, as you can see here. And then focus, especially right now, the meta is doing all the elemental damage and then spell and mana. Everything else really can come afterwards, but that's kind of where the best are right now. So that is my takeaway on how to build your class, how to build your own kit. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.